Hello, folks. Another episode of Burning Platform, and it's again a pleasure and an honor to have my good friend Dion Hinchcliffe Black for another episode. We bring him back, every 18 months or so. And this time he is with a new firm, and he's going to share some exciting results from a study, AI study he's just done. Dion, great to see you again. Happy New Year. Talk about what you've done.
Happy New Year, Vinny. Thanks for having me on the show back. Yeah, exactly. Um, I normally work with the Chief Information Officer audience, as you know, and that's been my audience for 25 years, and I know them well. But with artificial intelligence really becoming one of the most strategic topics in business today, we really noticed that the conversation was moving up into the highest spot in the C-suite, the CEO, who's really, the CEO is really in charge of navigating the organization into the future. COO operates the organization of today, and everyone else has their functional specialization. But the CEO is really supposed to move the organization into the future. And so we really had this theory that they're the ones really driving forward a lot with AI. And the So we wanted to test that. So we conducted a study, and to really get a sense of what CEOs are doing with AI and how what they're planning to do in the future, what their worries about the risks are, and we learned a lot of things. So we sampled 213 CEOs around the world, and I talked to over 20 of them in person. Again, sampled around the world with in-depth interviews and very detailed questions, asking what they're doing, and we kind of use that to build a snapshot. And if you do this kind of data gathering, when you get up into that couple hundred number, basically statistically accurate, plus or minus 3% or so. So, it's an accurate snapshot of what CEOs in all the different geographies. And so let's just jump right into the some of the key findings in the report. But Vinny, do you have any questions before I do that?
No, and as you go along, talk about your new firm and how that provided a platform for you to do this. If that's relevant. Yeah,
Yeah,
please
yeah,
go ahead.
of course. So what you should see here is the landing page, the first page of the report. Can
Yep,
you see it? Okay,
yep.
great. So the real question was, are CEOs ready to seize AI's potential? And at the Futurum Group, I head up the CIO practice, but really kind of all of our what we call digital CXOs. A digital CXO is anyone in the C-suite who has major digital responsibility. So that might be connecting with customers using digital channels, or supporting customers, or marketing to them, or developing products for them, or so on and so forth. And now the CEO is a digital CXO as well. And I in the report, which you can find online, but we really saw these kind
Dan,
of
Dan, 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 drill down into that. Are
yeah.
they truly, I mean, when you compare them to lifetime technologists, CIOs and CXOs, is a CEO really that savvy?
No, no, almost universally they say don't ask me any technology questions. Um, but they had lots of experience with AI for the most part. Not all of them, but a lot of them were very clear on how they're achieved. Like one company had they're in the B2B business, and they had to support a lot of customers. They had put an AI interface in front of all the different reporting and other things that they do for their B2B customers who want to know where their shipments are and how many credits they have left. Now they could just log in and ask the AI, how many credits do I have left? What shipments are late? And it dramatically improved customer care and significantly reduced costs. They were able to get rid of most of their support personnel, in fact. And that was a pretty typical thing that we saw is even early on, right now, there's a lot of people who have fielded this now past the first wave of rollouts, and they've got it deeply embedded in customer care, and they've also got it deeply embedded in operations and supply chain. The CEOs were able to really talk in high detail because they're a lot of them were evidently they were seeking bonuses for some of the results they had received. So they were very familiar with exactly what had taken
And
place.
Diane, you probably did this in the last 6, 8 months, right?
60 days, last
More
60 days.
recently, more recently, certainly Salesforce and Microsoft have been talking about agentic AI, right? We've gone
Yes.
beyond copilots into agents, and NVIDIA is already talking about physical AI, which is now blending robotics with AI, right? So, did you cover some of that, or is it more just because of the timing you couldn't ask them some of those questions?
We were able to. This is a very current study. It was, all the data was gathered within the last 60 days.
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
yeah, so it's very current. And we did ask about these things. So I was hearing eye-opening things. If you talk about what they're doing today, it's in customer service, customer care, support. It's in optimizing supply chain, and things like that. Where they're going though is like I talked to the CEO of a major global audit firm, and they said, we know in 3 to 5 years, audit will not be done by people. That business is ending for us. But we're still going to service it, but using AI. And then we'll be able to have a complete picture of their financial situation and then be able to provide value add services. Our next profit makers are going to be advisory. Here's how you can squeeze another 10% of cost out, or here's your innovation opportunities, or here's your adjacent industries you could move into given everything you've already got set up. That's what this audit CEO told me. And we're not a small firm. We're talking with somebody who has 20,000 auditors. He
Well,
says that,
Dan, I think you and I should go and talk to them 4 years from now. I
yeah.
started my career at a CPA firm. They are addicted to people, man. I'd love to see his vision come true.
Well, think about it though. That remember how I'm old enough, and you're certainly old enough to remember when there used to be giant buildings full of people with calculators running payroll. Those days, those people did go away. They were automated by the payroll systems and things like that, but there had to be, or it used to be huge buildings full of people calculating payroll for companies and doing all the taxes and then rolling up all that data and making all the payments and distributing checks. It used to be a very labor intensive process.
Yeah, but they were cost overhead. They weren't
Yeah.
revenue. Audit firms rely on people revenue. Anyway,
Well, this is the problem. So I talked to another CEO who is head of a global staffing firm, and he says, in the future, I will be offering up AI as often as I offer up humans for these roles, and we're building that out right now.
that
Uh,
that's good. That's good to hear.
yeah. Well, it's good to hear. It depends on who you are, though. Some if you're an auditor, maybe you're just not so good. Just like the payroll, the actual payroll calculator person is gone. No one does that anymore.
Except that audit has become so complicated because it's not just about numbers; it's about interpretation, right? Is this control good enough? You're opining on different things, and opinions are not that easy to codify.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So I got a lot of color from what these people are doing, and they expect AI to be able to formulate breakthrough new products for them. They say can't do it right now. So right now I'm doing all the cost cutting and productivity things, which they're all some of the stories were quite impressive about early productivity gains. Then we're doing anything strategic though. They want to like a manufacturer of ink for newspapers, magazines, and so on. They said cost is the absolute paramount. As long as you maintain a certain level of quality, cost is the most important thing. And I'm about to lose my customers to Asia. So I need some kind of new idea so that I can bring an ink to market that they can only get from me that and does something that they really need. And he says we can't be able to find it. We've been looking for 20 years and we can't find it. Maybe AI can, right? So it's very interesting. Um, but let's dive into some of the insights. So we found this real confidence paradox. The you know, the CEOs are broadly confident about capturing value from AI. That's not, they know it's there. But the ones that relinquish day-to-day control, in other words, they don't micromanage, they tend to do better than the ones that try and mandate AI and then they try and have usher in a very specific vision themselves. They try and drive it all the way to the end instead of handing it over to people who really know the technology much better. And so that was a clear signal in there is that they have high confidence, but the ones that try and lead it too much don't report as good of results as those who say I mandated it, but I stood back and let my people follow the, execute the mandate. So that was very interesting. Um, Also, we saw that there was companies had lower performance in terms of their AI initiatives when they really tried to be overly aggressive. When they had this really rushed approach and going after, let's say, hundreds of use cases, we had definitely heard that. Said, we're trying to catch up to everything. So that was another interesting piece. And then I've been reporting verbally to you that there's a lot of long-term vision. That really all they're focusing on right now is short-term, quick wins, things like that, which is what you'd expect with a major new technology. That's nothing wrong with that. It's just that in traditionally, the organizations that think longer term are ready for that. When the opportunity arises, they're ready to seize that. So that was very interesting.
Well, that myopia, then, is actually, I'm finding that in the vendor world actually quite a bit. I've asked several of them. Your use cases are so SG&A focused, right? They tend to be, I can improve employee descriptions, I can improve customer service, but nothing on the operational side. So cost of goods sold is pretty much untouched. You have to go back to, a few examples like predictive maintenance or demand
But you
forecasting.
don't need generative AI for predictive
No, you
maintenance,
don't.
right? Yeah,
No,
yeah,
that's
that's
been
the
done
thing.
for a few years, right? And same thing on the revenue side. So when you look at the P&L, so little has been serviced by enterprise AI so far. I mean, like you say, you have to have a long-term vision. How am I? Every line item on an income statement should have some AI feeder or influence, right? And I don't know how many companies are really doing that.
Yes, right. Well, and this is highlights this fast follower advantage up here on the screen here. There was a real hunger to be a fast follower and not a pioneer, saying, we're a hospitality company. We run hotels. We don't have a big AI lab. We don't have the money to do that. What we're going to do is find out, someone's going to make the investment, or a few people are going to make the investments. A lot of them will go down a blind alley, but whoever is successful, we're going to follow them right down that path really quickly. That's what we intend to do. So whoever is out there who takes that budget risk and finds success, then people are just going to double down on that. We heard that over and over again. So about half of the CEOs we talked to. And then, as you'd expect, Vinny, if you haven't been taking care of your data up to this point, if you haven't really been trying to integrate it and open it up and make it work for the rest of your business instead of just that one function in your business, then you're way behind. You're not ready for AI. And we really found that for the CEOs that reported stalled or ineffective AI efforts, the 60% of them. With stalled or ineffective efforts had fragmented data and outdated infrastructure. They separately reported that. So that it's the data. If you haven't been getting your data house in order, you are behind in AI, and you've got a couple of years at least of intense work to get ready for broad-based generative AI.
And did you look at what kind of data they consider strategic? The reason I asked the question is that we were talking before we started recording of my new fiction book, right? And in that book, um, there's a lot of conversation around, and it's called the AI Analyst, by the way. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of conversation around the really high value use cases are going to be around drug discovery or mineral insights or pattern insights and customer trends and so on. And most of that stuff is not available to vendors. People hide that, right? It's like the Coca-Cola formula. It's in a safe somewhere deep in Atlanta, which very few people have access to. So, did you talk to them about strategic data versus more back office type data?
Uh, Now we didn't do it so much in the survey. We did do some of it in the in-depth interviews, and they do view their critical methods and their formulas and things like that as very sensitive. And we've seen the other data about only about 3% of enterprise data is inside of the foundation models out there because it's
Really?
not visible. They can't scan it and read it and ingest it because it's not publicly available.
Right.
Um, and so there is, I talked to this is separate from the study. I talked to the chief digital officer of the American Geophysical Union, and it's a huge association of scientists, and they have an unbelievable body of knowledge, but it's behind a firewall. They have all of these research papers, all of these conversations, all of these laboratory studies, all of this assay data and other things that they know they should build a model for it, but none of that is available in current models, which are, have a big blind spot in that domain because most of the real research is behind the paywall.
And
And
a
they,
lot of attempts are being made to breach that firewall, right? So that's another worry for a number of companies. Back in the book, there's a lot of conversation around the how many unauthorized users are trying to access this sensitive data, right? And
yes.
the terminology over and over that's used is who put my oil under their sand. People behave as if that data should be available to them, right? They don't want to pay for it. They just assume, hey, everything else is available with ChatGPT. How come this is protected, right?
Oh, and Vinny, I have a lot of hands-on experience in my previous tech work. I was the enterprise architect for a bunch of very big, well-known companies. And this has happened inside of companies. Let's say HR is paying for the Oracle license for the HR module, which is often the case. And then you say, oh, but you should open up that data because every application needs a list of employees, at least for the employee pick list, so you can build, tracking applications and project management. And they're like, well, why should we pay for? Because Oracle wants money for that, to open up that data, and so why should we pay our Oracle bill to support the rest of the organization? So you even have that inside of companies where you have this data hoarding, often to saying, well, we don't want to pay for it, and we don't want to have to support it. Once people start expecting us to then provide that information, that's a new service, that's a new business. We're in internal service delivery, and we didn't sign up for that, right? So. You have to work through not just the physical data access issues and integration, but you have to work through all the cultural and business process issues related to data ownership and sharing, and companies haven't worked that out. And you're just trying to figure that out now and roll out AI, which generative AI looks at all your data and tries to find the patterns among it, right? So it needs full access to all your data, and then it goes and tries to weave it all together into a foundation model for you, right? And companies are not ready for that in many cases. And few companies we talk to are building their own models. They might be fine tuning the big models out there with their own data. They make a copy of it and create their own area where they fine tune it. But they barely even had the language to describe what they were doing to me. Um, so the biggest takeaway of our study is this one: is the companies most successful. This was a clear signal. Um, with AI right now, and this could change, but right now are the ones whose leaders are stepping back from hands-on AI strategy after they say, go forth and rethink your corner of the business with AI. This is the future, and don't wait. And I support you. Then they stop there and they make sure those people deliver, but they don't go much further than that.
Isn't that a
So that
management style, though? Some CEOs seem to be very good at decentralizing, not just AI, right? Different functional areas. Others tend to be very, very, uh, what's the right word? Hands on is probably the most polite word, but
well, and
they're
I think you can make it work. It's not like we said that's the only way you can do things, but we just said it tends to, if you want to be have a higher chance of success. Go forth and tell people to be fruitful with AI, but don't if you try and you can't micromanage that many different things. So if you want broad AI success across your business, you won't be able to micromanage it. If you say I can only do AI where I'm really making sure that it's going to be successful, then you're going to neglect the rest of your organization because the CEO only has so much management capability and not very much in a big company. They don't really have time. They can't. They have to think in every meeting has to be about a 50 to 150 million dollar part of their business, and that's really has to be larger than that for most conversations. So they have to really be careful about managing their time. So I remember having a conversation with a CIO of Time Warner, and I was talking to something. And he goes, "Diane, I'm getting a sense that this whole thing you're talking to me is probably less than $100 million per year for me. Is that right?" And I said, "Oh yeah, probably." He says, I can't think about that. I have people to do that. I'm going to have you talk to them. So it's
That
interesting.
is,
As a CEO, you have to think about in very big chess pieces. Um, so a few really big insights here. 64% of CEOs without a formal AI roadmap said they had minimal returns with AI. That was a very clear signal. If you really haven't organized yourself and formally put together a plan that's well thought out and has had some contact with the enemy to make sure it was right, then you are seeing that you're seeing more, and they're reporting minimal returns from AI. So that was very interesting. Get organized. You really have to get, and you have to establish strategic alignment across the organization. And we saw that many times when the initiatives were cross-functional and involved multiple parts of the business to sort through what AI really needed to do and made that AI implementation more applicable across the business. And we talked about data readiness. And it was interesting. Only 39% of high-performing AI adopters cited dedicated change management frameworks as a key success factor. That was a little bit surprising. Maybe because they're just moving fast and breaking things, and they're going to figure out how to do the change management later, and that's why they can report success. So we're going to keep looking at that to see if that holds true. We think that broadly you're going to need more change
I have a,
management.
Diane, I have a theory. Change management emerged, when I was looking at big ERP projects. It's a consulting term, right? And quite often it was used to bring in people with PhDs in industrial psychology and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just people have become cynical of the term. Maybe I'm sure they're doing it. They just couldn't express that to you. You know,
In my experience, change management can be as little as putting up posters in the cafeteria. That's
or or end
advice.
user training, right?
Yeah, and then there are people who go through this much more advanced experiential training that really makes you rethink your work so that you understand the new way it's being done. And yeah, I've seen your mileage varies depending on the quality of the change management processes that you have, right? So absolutely. So we have a lot of, you can see a wealth of data. It goes on for we really have a view and we break it down by geography. We have some great quotes from the CEO. Audience. We kind of break up, what if you're a new company versus a traditional company? That's what we call the stalwarts. We saw big differences between more established firms and less established firms. So more established ones are the reds, and the purple here is the digital native companies. They're new, they're less than 10 years old and doing AI now. You can see there's big differences in, you know, the digital native companies they're trying to figure out their strategic roadmaps a lot more, whereas big companies really focused on internal alignment around AI. So not those that's not too surprising. We mapped out AI concerns by industry, so and it did vary a lot. What they worried about, whether it's data privacy or talent adaptation, was very different depending on what industry they were in. But the part I want to get to, and the culmination, I think the most valuable thing in the whole study is we put together a roadmap based on what works based on the most successful companies. We extracted just what they were doing and we put it into this playbook. The five things that if you do that, you'll see most likely see the most success. And we have things like data is the oxygen, but people, you got to have AI people. And a lot of them we're hiring a CTO. They said we've never hired a CTO before, but we're hiring an AI CTO now. So we did hear that loudly and clearly multiple times from the CEOs we talked to. But one of the most important ones was cultivating this fearless culture around AI, telling people your job is not on the line. If you automate your job, we're going to find you a better job. Doing that again, doing more applying AI in our business. So stop job security fears in their tracks right now. Say you're protected. But you're gonna also help us bring AI in. And help us automate the business. But that doesn't mean we're going to push you out the door. And if you create that fearless culture, we heard this from the most successful CEOs that they said we had big town hall meetings, And we told people that don't worry about your jobs. It's going to be okay, but we need you to learn AI and apply it to our business. That's, and if you do that, we're not going to have any problems. So this fearless AI
And
culture,
and that's always, I mean, through history, I guess
yeah,
it goes back to the Luddites, right? Automation's always created job loss worries. So AI is no different. I wrote a book about 7, 8 years ago called Silicon Collar that
I
looked
remember.
at
Yeah,
that looked at UPC codes in groups, groceries when they were first introduced, ATM machines when they were introduced in banks, uh, a bunch of automation, right? And
yes,
in many of those industries, they led to new jobs and increased scale up jobs, right? Groceries, for example, UPC codes were meant to replace cash out, the
the
checkout,
cashier. Yeah.
checkout folks. Well, consumer good companies said, "Oh my God, this makes it so easy to brand multiple versions of SKUs, right? Campbell could come out with 30 different varieties of soups and so on." So they started shipping more product. Grocery um, volume actually went up, increased jobs, right? So the, there's stuff that people tend to worry, and politicians and media that like to hype up fear, but we don't completely understand the path in which automation gets adopted. So, there's unintended positive
Well,
consequences.
well, the data backs you up, Benny. I mean, the data shows that every tech revolution has thrown off more jobs than it destroyed, right? So, when you look back at the printing press, replace scribes, and scribes didn't have that much. There was not many uses for that, but a printing press can be created all new types of businesses: newspapers, magazines, textbooks, newspapers, all these things that were not possible, and all those industries threw off, many different jobs. You need newsroom people. You need people to distribute the huge volume of newspapers, books, and magazines that you have now. It created libraries, many more libraries than existed before. Things
Well,
like that.
automation tends to target tasks, not complete jobs. I mean, so that it transforms jobs rather than replaces them. That's been the general
Well, this one might be a
theory.
little different, but yeah, I mean, generative AI is more broadly applicable. You can go and tell a Gen AI prompt, I want you to be the world's best project manager around, on construction projects, and it'll do its darndest to try and do that
But,
job.
but but the human body has a lot of stuff. Now if you bring in Gen AI with humanoid robots and sensors and UAVs, maybe we'll get there. The human body is just way too complex. We do a lot of stuff with our hands and vision and so on. So, AI my perspective is sometimes we white collar folks think AI is hot, so hot, it's going to replace everything. It won't.
No, it won't. It will not. But I think your point with humanoid robots, when they get down to the right price point, I think we do have to worry about that. But the question is, do we really have to? People have to worry about their jobs. Short term, there will be dislocation. People are going to change roles for sure, and they may wander in the wilderness if they're not willing to learn these new skills. But in general, what we've seen with the Industrial Revolution and the knowledge revolution and the automation revolution is that it creates
They should be more worried about whether they'll be
a bigger pie.
they should be more worried about whether they'll be asked to come back to the office.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm here in Washington, D.C., and everyone's been made to go back to the office, so we'll see what happens here. I haven't heard too much. It's definitely been more crowded
So Diane, where do they get this report? I mean, clearly you've covered about 30 pages of it. I'm sure there's a lot of wonderful data to pour over. How do they get a copy?
Yeah, just go to the futurumgroup.com, and you can find the page to request it pretty easily. So we definitely encourage you to do it. There's a wealth of data and insights on this that really help you kind of make sure you're not making the beginner mistakes.
Any final thoughts?
Um, I was really struck by. I expected to hear a lot about the theory about how AI they're going to do something in the next couple of years because boards are. I've heard broadly that boards are asking CIOs to do something. They don't know what, but do something about AI that makes prove that we're on the right path. And the CEOs, they were able to report now a year later after Gen AI started, they're able to report quite a few successful quick wins that they're delivering with their customers. I talked to the CEO of AAA. And they said, yeah, I mean, we're seeing traction with this right now. We're seeing cost savings right now. We're seeing NPS scores increasing with our customers right now because of generative AI. So it's very encouraging. The results are there, but everyone expects this is just the first wave. A much deeper transformation, AI transformation of the business is coming in the next 3 to 5 years. This report will prepare you for that. I encourage you to download it. Save you, months of time trying to figure out the answers to some of these things. And I'd love to hear any feedback. I'm easy to find online about your mileage with this report.
Diane, always a pleasure. And thank you for giving us a early sneak preview.
Yeah, no, it's great having me. Thanks, Vinny. I always enjoy being on the show.